Welcome back to another 2D animation tutorial using Adobe Flash. This time I'll be showing you how to create a layered animated background. Now I've already created myself a project folder and I've taken 3 images just from the internet for practice, and I've titled these accordingly, and I've got my largest one here. It's a JPEG, it's my background, and I've already resized it in Photoshop to 1080 by 3000 pixels. So 1080 is the height of my stage and 3000 pixels is much wider than my stage, so I've got the flexibility to actually move that left to right. And originally it was much larger than that size. I've only scaled it down. With pixel graphics, you should only really scale down. You shouldn't really make anything much larger because it will pixelate, it distorts, and it loses a lot of quality. My other files, I've just got a plant in a pot and I've got a tree, and you'll notice they're both PNGs. That means the background to these, anything outside of the plant and the tree, is transparent. So when I put it over my background, there's no white area around that tree or the plant. And then of course I've got my Flash document saved in here too. So in Flash I've already changed my properties to 24 frames per second and 1920 by 1080. I've also imported my 3 images into my library, and to do that just go to File, Import, Import to Library, and then select the relevant files. I now want to bring these in one by one, so I'm going to retitle my layer 1 by double clicking on layer 1, and I'll call this background. And I'm going to click and drag my background image onto my stage, and you'll see it's the same height but it's much wider, so I've got the flexibility to animate this across without running out of graphics. And I'm going to use the motion tween process I did in a previous tutorial. So we first need to make sure this is a symbol rather than just an image. So select it, go to modify, convert to symbol. We want a graphic symbol and give it an appropriate name. I'll call it the same name, so background, and I'm going to put the size in as well just in case I bring in other large background files, so I know which one's which. Click on OK, and you'll notice in the library now there's 2 files with the same name, but they have got different icons. So you'll get used to what these icons mean. One of them is a symbol, the other one down here is an image. So we want the symbol, and I want to position this on the left. I can't really animate from over here because then I've got nothing on my stage. I need to make sure it covers the whole stage. That's why it's so much larger. A motion tween, we can right click on our symbol, create a motion tween, and the default duration of a motion tween is 24 frames or 1 second. I'm going to click and drag the end of that motion tween. I'll go down to 120 frames, that's 5 seconds. You'll notice there's a keyframe on frame 1. I can now simply put a keyframe in on frame 120, and you'll notice this red marker is there too. So I know I'm selecting frame 120, right click on that, insert a keyframe, and I'll go to all. And I'm now just going to reposition my background over to here. Again, I don't want it to go further down the stage so there's any white area. It has to cover all of the stage all of the time. So if I press play, that just moves across my stage. I can now think about the other layers and the other images. So I'll create a new layer. That's the icon in the very bottom left corner of the screen. Title the layer appropriately, so in this case I'll call it tree, press enter. And on frame 1, I want to click and drag that tree file in. So if I drag that on, like I said, it's a PNG, so it's transparent. We can see through the gaps of the trees. And if you want to rescale it, you can just use the free transform tool. Again, you don't want to scale up because you actually lose quality. So make sure your graphics is either the same size to what you want or larger. You can scale down, that's fine, but try not to scale up. Now I want to create a motion tween again. So I'm just going to position this over here. On frame 1, before I right click, I need to convert it to a symbol. So select it, modify, convert to symbol. Like we did before, make sure it's a graphic. Give it an appropriate name. I'll just call that tree again. And now I can right click and create a motion tween. You'll notice the duration now is not the default 24 frames. It actually matches any previous motion tweens. We can, however, change the duration, just click and drag. You will find though, after that duration, that tree will disappear because there's no frames beyond this point. So I'm just going to make sure it matches my 120 frames. And then on frame 120, like before, I'm going to add or insert another keyframe. I'll go to all. And I want to move this across, but I want to make sure it moves further than my background because it's closer to us. The background should move less. And we can just click on play to test that. So it's moving slightly faster there and it gives the illusion of depth. We can now do exactly the same process with our final image, our pot plant, but it's got to move even faster again. So make a new layer, title that new layer, so I'll call that pot plant, press enter. On frame 1, so select frame 1, drag that pot plant image onto your stage, convert it to a symbol. So when it's selected, modify, convert to symbol, make sure it's a graphic and then give it a name. You might want to rescale it, but I really want this in the foreground, so I'm going to make sure it's fairly large. And when you rescale, you'll find you can completely modify the ratio unless you hold shift. If you hold shift, everything remains the same. And I'm now going to give this a motion tween like before. So on frame 1, I'll right click, create a motion tween. I'm going to go over to frame 120, but I've clicked just above it to put that red marker there so I know I'm on frame 120. Right click on frame 120. Insert a keyframe. Go to all. And then I'm going to move this symbol now. And I want it to move faster than the tree because it's in the foreground. So we need to really just try it, play it and see how it comes out. So you can see that's moving slightly faster. If you want it to move even faster again, you just have to make sure it moves further. So on frame 120, I'm going to move it to the right. On frame 1, I'm going to move that to the left. Press play again. Make sure anything in the foreground moves further than anything in the background. And then we can test this actual movie because you can't see where your stage is at the moment. So we can go up to control and then test and actually see how it looks. It moves quite quick. Maybe we want to slow it down, but you can see how different layers can actually change the appearance of the depth. So make sure you're titling your layers. If you need to use more, if you need to reposition them, do. It's lots of trial and error. The most important thing is that you understand the process. If it goes wrong, don't worry, just keep practicing.